is an opportunity to be able to illustrate and to live a concept. A lot of times we talk about ideas, but they remain ideas, and they're actually they live in that realm, the realm of an idea. But actually, this idea, which is the prerequisite for getting the Torah, it's magnificent to be able to live it this way and to join you as part of this amazing event on the Upper East Side, Unity on the Upper East Side, for so many different rabbis from the different synagogues. Thank you so much, Rabbi Yaya, for arranging this. It's beautiful what you've done, and as well for your team, Sarah, for pushing this, and I know Yair as well, done it so well, and Ethan. Hazaku Baruch, may Hashem bless the endeavors of your hands. So it's a big zechut to be here. It's a big zechut to be not just talking about unity, but to be expressing it with our actions by joining together like this. It's very special. And I want to share a little bit about this idea, about the unity of Har Sinai. Many of the things that happen in the lead up, or in the run up, if you will, to the receiving of the Torah, so we look at them as almost like circumstantial, like it happened to be that this happened before they got it happened to be. I spoke last night about the fact that the setting of being in the desert, in the Midbar, it wasn't that they happened to receive the Torah in the desert. They had to get it there, and they could only get it there, all right? So there are many of these ideas that are not circumstantial. They're not happenstance. They were prerequisites. They were essential to the receiving of the Torah, and perhaps maybe none as important as this one idea. The pasuk says, "Vayichan sham Yisrael neged ahar," and they camped there, Israel, opposite the mountain. And famously, our rabbis tell us, "Ki ish echad," they camped there like one man, belev echad, with one heart. And when Am Yisrael stood there, when they were camped in this place as one man with one heart, suddenly God could give the Torah. Without that unity, the Torah would be a distant dream. It would be something that we never could have received. And I think that that's something we could wrap our heads around together for 1 second. I'm just going to pause and let that sink in. Had any Jew not been at the foot of Mount Sinai, if one of them couldn't make it because they had a previous Zoom meeting commitment, okay? If one Jew had gone out to get, pastrami on rye, God would have said, we can't start. Somebody's not here. Without Am Yisrael being together, it was impossible. Now the Avnei Nezer asks an amazing question. He says, this is touted as being something unbelievable. A time when the Jewish people united, and that unity was so powerful that it resulted in the Jewish people's destiny changing forever. It resulted in them getting the Torah. So if that is the case, why is it so special if we find this exact idea said just a short while before? When the Jewish people are leaving Egypt, they're running away, and it says, and the Jewish people looked behind them, and they saw, Vayar Yisrael et Mitzrayim, and the Jewish people saw Egypt, singular, Nosea, traveling after them. They were traveling after them. Nosea doesn't mean Nosim. Nosim is plural. Mitzrayim, it can be singular or plural, but it's exactly the same subject, like a noun in the singular and a verb in the singular, as we find by Har Sinai. What's the difference? Look at Rashi. Rashi even says, similar to what he says over here, that Egypt was belev echad, with one heart, ki ish echad, as one man. Says the Avnei Nezer, yes, it sounds the same, but it is markedly different. In one instance, they are called ish echad, one man, belev echad, with one heart. Their one heart was because they were one man, they were one team, they were one family, they were brothers and sisters. That was why their hearts were united, because they were at their core one. Whereas with the Egyptians, it says they were traveling after the Jews to inflict hatred, to inflict violence. They were belev echad, ki ish echad. Since they had the same heart, since they were passionate about the same thing, that made them into one man. But at their core, were they united? Not at all. They were joining together to fight against a common enemy. They hated the Jews equally, and that drove them to act as one man. Am Yisrael was markedly different. Vayichan Sham Yisrael. They weren't nosea, they weren't traveling, they weren't driven to something. They were camped together. They were living together. They were in the same place at the same time. You know, you could fool a lot of people to believing that you are somewhere, that you feel something or but you know who knows? There's a great line they say over from the Ger Rebbe. The Ger Rebbe said that there's two beings who know the true nature of man. God and your wife. Your wife knows if you're faking it. Your wife knows if you pretend to care. She sees that you come back home and you're like, oh, this guy is annoying me, driving me crazy in the Chabad house. He's driving me nuts in the shul. You know, I hate it when these people take advantage of me, okay? So God knows and your wife knows. It's much easier to travel as one, to go to a rally for unity, than it is to live. Vayichan Sham Yisrael ki ish echad belev echad. Once upon a time, we became the Jewish people because we lived together. And I think, and dare I say it, perhaps once again, if we would like to see salvation, that is what we need to do one more time. The word Vayichan doesn't only mean that they camped, but its root comes from the word chen. And the amazing Shem Mishmuel points out that Vayichan Sham Yisrael means that in that place, the Jewish people found favor in the eyes of one another. Everyone looked at the Jewish person to the right, the Jewish person to the left. They didn't care about their haircut or their yarmulke or which synagogue they went to, or if they were on the west side or the east side or the north side or the south side. I have not figured that out, by the way. How come there's not a north side and a south side of the city? We should not be called the Upper East. We should be called the Northeast. I mean, surely if we're using east, then we're in the directions game. But either way, however these things developed, okay? Now, listen to this. We could also be the north left. I don't know why. It's very strange. But either way, listen to this. I think it's fascinating. So what does it mean to be able to have someone else find favor in your eyes and to be able to live and to get along with them in such a beautiful way? So I'd like to share with you an unbelievable story that I heard from Rabbi Chazan. Rabbi Chazan was speaking a while back and he shared the most magnificent idea. He was unfortunately suffered the loss of one of his nieces, and it was something that hit him very, 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 very hard. And he went, unfortunately, on the Shloshim, on the 30 days, he went to the cemetery and he was saying Tehillim and he was praying by the grave of this young girl who passed away when she was only 12 years old. Someone came to him and they saw that he was in a lot of pain, one of the cousins. And he said, I want to give you a little bit of comfort. Let me tell you something that happened. Something that happened at the Shiva. And he recounted the following story. Right before she passed away, they realized that she only had a little time left in the hospital sent her home. So they wanted to do something nice for her, something to cheer her up. They made a few phone calls and they were able to find a pilot who flew a helicopter. And he took this 11-year-old girl and he said, we're going to go and fly in a helicopter over London. What do you want to see? Do you want to see Big Ben? Do you want to see from the sky? Do you want to see the London Eye? Do you want to see Buckingham Palace? I don't know, do you want to kind of, swoop in and get some pictures of the Queen sunning on her back deck? Like, what do you want to see in all of London if you have this unbelievable opportunity? And she says, you know what? Would it be okay if we flew over the building of my school? I miss my friends. I miss my classmates. My happiest memories were, going to school and playing and just talking about nothing and hanging out at recess. Would that be okay? Could we fly over my school? Of course, sure. Immediately, the cousin who was going to take her up in the flight with the pilot, he sends a message to the principal of the school. He says, I just want you to know something. My niece, my cousin, my niece, whatever, she could choose anywhere. And you know what she chose? You know what she wanted to see? She just wanted to see your school. I just wanted you to know that you must be doing an incredible job with the girls to make them feel united and connected, if that's the thing that she wants to see. Anyway, they get up, they're flying, closer and closer, and then the pilot of the helicopter kind of banks the helicopter to turn so that they'll be able to fly right over the building. And as he flies over the building, they can see that he's sobbing. And he's still in the turn and he's crying already. And they're coming around the turn and they said, "Why are you crying?" And the pilot said, "You'll see in a second." And as they completed the turn and they were able to see out of his side and the side of the window for him and this little girl, they looked at the roof of the building of this Bet Yaakov. And the principal had arranged and brought the entire school up to the roof and arranged them in the shape of a giant heart. And they were waving to her as she passed by. My friends, this man at the Shiva called the principal and he said, that is what it means to have a heart for somebody else. To live, to be connected, to be united, to feel, to understand them. To understand what it means that someone should find favor in your eyes and you in theirs. Suddenly, Am Yisrael was thinking of one another. Not just, let me send them a nice get well quick, but more than that. The Maharal says that tzedakah is for the poor, but chesed is for everybody. You want to really feel together with somebody else, it doesn't help to pay lip service. The only way you do that is when you actually show them, I care about you. You want to fly over the building? Okay, very nice. I love it. Break all the, stop all the classes. Get them up there. Let this girl have a memory that she'll remember until the very short amount of time before she passes away. That's what it means to have a Jewish heart. Not only in an action, but where the whole building becomes a heart of love for somebody else. Now, I want to share with you, this idea, my friends, it's not limited. When we think of tzedakah and chesed, it's not limited to giving donations or to doing some grandiose thing. But rather, I want to quote to you the words of the Pasuk. The Pasuk says, Vayomer Adonai imna matzatichem be'enecha, al ta'avor me'al avdecha. Please, he says, Abraham says to one of these people that are coming past him in the desert, don't pass me by. Please, don't pass me by, because it was for this that you passed me by that I should give you some bread. Ki al ken avartem al avdechem. You and I need to recognize that if someone passes us by in the street, in our community, there is a reason why their path has crossed ours. We were supposed to do or be something for them. Vayichan Sham Yisrael means that we survive as Jews and we thrive as Jews when we are able to really take on board someone else's pain. And if they came my way, why did God arrange for that meeting to happen? What do they need? Do they need a shidduch? Do they need you to introduce them to someone? Do they need your help getting their kid into a school? Do they need a little bit of charity or a little bit of help with their finances? Do they need some recommendations of where they could shop, or they need to be welcomed into the neighborhood? Every encounter that we have is a chance to show that we are part of this glorious nation. Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged hahar. If God brought that problem past your attention, it was for you. And when you get the chance, you see this opportunity and you step up to try and help a situation. Sometimes you don't think you could do anything, but God arranges it that suddenly the ability to help miraculously comes your way. And I ask you this question. What would have happened if Abraham would have ignored those guests in the distance? He had a good excuse. They weren't Jewish. They're Arabs in the desert. He had an excuse, but he would not have gotten the message, the nivu'ah about his son. What if Rivka would have said about Eliezer, who's this guy? I don't need to serve him water. He's not part of the tribe. What if Yaakov didn't bother helping the girls at the well because they were girls and he was too religious? What if Batya had said about Moshe, it's not my child, not my problem. I think he's even Jewish. What if Moshe had said, it's their sin, it's their problem, and not stood up for the Jewish people in front of God? If Esther would have said, I'm safe. I don't have to worry. What if Boaz would have said to Ruth, you know something, you don't quite have the yichus I'm looking for. I'm not quite interested in you. And also this meeting is quite, shall we say, unorthodox. All of Jewish history would not have happened. We would not have been born as a people. We would not have been redeemed from Egypt. We would not have been saved in the desert. We would not have been saved from Haman. Everything happened because someone took the time to look at someone else who had a need and say, what can I do to help? Not to pay lip service, not to travel to a rally together, but to see how I can live with you and you can live with me. We get the chance to do our best, to make our effort. But when we do so, we dip our little pen into the ink and we start putting that pen to paper. We don't know where it's going to go. And God writes the most beautiful stories that have ever been written. Chag Sameach. Thank you so much for having me here with you. Thank you. Okay, Insta. What's going on? I have a very special guest for you guys a little bit later. It's going to be after the Chazak program is done. So if you haven't yet heard, we have a program. It's going to be on Chazak NYC on Instagram. You should also be able to find it on Facebook or on the Zoom link. We still have, I think it's 2 more Rabbanim that are going to be speaking. But tune in tonight at roughly, I think it's going to be around 10 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, I have an amazing guest that you need to hear his story, and you need to hear the sounds that come out of that man's throat. Oh my gosh! All right, 10 o'clock. See you here. The class, Lucy, this class is over. This is a 15-minute class, but there's the Shavuot prep class is still going on. Check it out on @ChazakNYC on Instagram. God bless.